Welcome to episode 1345 of The Sleeper and the Bust. I am Justin Mason, joined as always on Sundays by Jason Collette. How you doing, my friend?
Consecutive Sundays, folks. We're getting
There
back
we
at
go.
it. And
Yeah,
it's,
right?
it's to be clear, this has been mostly on me. So that's why it's been tough. But we are back because we discussed last week, more 2025. But we're still talking 2024. But a lot of it's also with the 2025 tone to some of the advice because we're ready for the offseason. I don't know if you've had a draft yet. I know I've seen some people already drafting. I'm like, you guys are sickos. But hey, not to say I haven't leveraged some of that information in some of my writing. In fact, I wrote about Corbin Burns this week. And so because somebody took him like 41st overall or 42nd overall in a draft, and I was like, huge yikes. But yeah, outside of that, I'm still wearing the same stuff I wore last night as UCF overcame a 3-touchdown deficit on the road to exact some revenge on TCU for waxing us in the NIT a few years ago. So Jen Piacenti, if you're listening, we finally got back at you because she's a TCU grad. And yeah, it was nice to win on the road, being down 3 touchdowns. And so super psyched, especially going into a bye week. There's no game next weekend for my birthday. So it's like if they would have lost that game, I'd have been like, great, I got to stew on this crap for 2 weeks. But they came back and won. It was a great time. So yay. That's all the football we're going to talk about today. That's it. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I have not started a draft yet. I have no intentions of starting a draft until I'm at least partway, if not the entire way through my projections, which I won't even start until 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from today, I will be sitting down and starting projections for 2025. But it doesn't mean we can't talk about some 2025 things. And we're going to definitely, with some of the FAAB today, we're going to roll over and kind of, we'll talk about what they look like for the next couple of weeks, but we're also going to talk about what we think of them coming into 2025 drafts. Let's start real quick and hit some news and notes. Ryne Nelson goes to the IL with, I think it was shoulder inflammation. You're dropping him everywhere. Well, I mean, he's gone for 2 weeks, so he's done for the season, right? So
I was wondering what the injury was. I thought maybe he'd like dislocated his thumb from tugging at his hat so much in his last outing. If you were watching that, Eno texted us. He goes, "Hey, what's he doing?" And like you can see this giant spot. It's like the old school kind of like I'm kind of surprised the Astros weren't like, "Hey, go check him." But I thought maybe, like I said, dislocated his thumb tugging at his hat because it was very deliberate. But yeah, at this point, anybody who's even anything, because in the leagues where I'm still trying to do something, it's all about playing time. And I'm just trying to throw. It's the same message we said last week. Maximize. You even brought it up. There's some teams with 5-game weeks the final week of the season. So whatever you can do, whatever's left in your bag of tricks to maximize playing time, do it. And if there's anybody showing any signs of anything, out.
Ryne Nelson has had a pretty spectacular second half this season. So
he has.
In the second half, he has thrown 61 innings with a 3.39 ERA, 66 strikeouts, so over a strikeout inning. How interested are you going to be in him in drafts next year? Because if you look at the composite numbers, which some people will do when they're drafting, it's kind of an unspectacular line with a 4.33 ERA and just about 7.5 strikeouts per 9. Is this a guy that you think might be undervalued in the market?
Hey, the strikeouts aren't sexy. Like a name I remember from last year whose overall numbers weren't that great, but within the season you saw some nice growth and it's translated out this well as Sean Manaea. Manaea's numbers were dog shit early last year, and then he got better in August and September, and that's translated over the course of this entire season. He's been one of the more effective pitchers, and he certainly wasn't a sexy name. He's certainly not a sexy pitcher with things, but at least he still gets a little more strikeouts than Nelson has been able to pick up here. But that's just that I look for that in-season growth. You're talking about projections. I'm always looking to see, who got started with something, who closed the season with some of that momentum, started making some process changes, started doing some things. And if that can translate over, and if, Nelson's had this better second half, So should certainly put him in a better light than his overall numbers. I mean, he did lower his ERA by almost a full run. Workload-wise, he's going to finish right about where he finished last year, and he improved his strikeout rate, cut his home run rate, cut his walk rate. There's a lot of good things trending in the right direction. All growth isn't linear, but there's a lot of things trending in good, positive directions for him right now.
Yeah, I'm completely agreeing with you. I think he's one of those guys that the market may not get too high on, especially if you are an early drafter when people are still kind of putting together a lot of their work. He may kind of gain some heat. There's also the question of, hey, how serious is his shoulder injuries? So, usually I kind of worry about a playoff tax for guys, but I want to see him in the playoffs. Like, I want to see him throw well in the playoffs so that way I feel more comfortable drafting him. The question is, will the Diamondbacks? Well, no, I guess they're right there on the cusp of kind of making it. So the question is, will the Diamondbacks actually be in the playoffs? They're going to need to finish strong here to kind of secure one of those last spots. So, but Nelson is a guy, especially if I get to see him pitch in the postseason, that I will definitely be interested in the 2025 drafts. Tyler Glasnow is done for the season. He has an elbow sprain. This is really, really disappointing for people who have been stashing him, hoping to get him back. He has been really, really good when he's been on the mound. The problem is, while he did eclipse his previous high of 120 innings, he only hit 134 innings this year. And with another elbow sprain kind of issue, is this a guy you're going to be kind of taking off your boards unless you see him pitch well in the postseason?
He's coming way down my boards because I had him as the NL Cy Young winner this year. So that was my prediction. And like you said, he set a career high in innings. The sad part is that's still only 134, and he's still on that Dodger team, still only won 9 of 22 starts. That's nutty. And so he's got to come down the board. And I know a lot of us were taking him as an SP1 waiting to take, or SP2 double tapping down there, but he's got to come down. I mean, and watch, he'll win the 2025 Cy Young. This will happen. But like you said, the elbow sprain, not a good sign. And we'll see, we're going to have to wait to see what happens in the offseason. And that news isn't always the best, because it's slow to come in. We don't know exactly. It's all fun and games. And then they come back to spring training and all of a sudden we have a setback. So I would say, like, if you're one of the sickos who's going to start drafting in October, you're going to see that price fall. It's just going to come down because until there's no news, that's the only thing that's going to push things up or move the needle one way or the other. So some people drafting early may end up getting a nice, like if you're doing draft and holds and you start doing draft and hold in October here and you can get him in a later round, go for it because you have other options. In a 50 round draft, whatever, you're going to lose these guys anyhow. If you're in a 50 round team this year, go look at your team right now. How many of those guys are already out? Are still out. I'm looking at one of my draft and holds. I have 2 pitchers I can use. 2 off the bench. So
that's actually not that bad.
I drafted 23 pitchers. That's the thing. I have 11 pitchers. 12 of them are out. And so that's what it comes down to. So draft and hold, sure, take the chance. Other than that, I can't imagine anybody's doing any other type of drafts at this point. But yeah, it's going to have to be put him in the wait and see list, but he's moving way down my board.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in one of these kind of really early draft and hold leagues, I'm probably not putting him on my board. I understand what you're saying, like, hey, you're going to lose these guys anyways, but you're going to lose a lot of these guys you don't expect to lose, right? And so, like, I say all the time, if you do a 50-round draft and hold, plan for 5 stashes, 5 injury or prospect stashes. Don't put more than that on your roster because the chances are you're going to lose a bunch of guys you didn't expect to lose, and you don't want to be taking zeros at any point. So for me, Glasnow will be off my board unless I see him pitch in the postseason, right? The Dodgers will be in the postseason. So the question becomes then, like, hey, does he, is he just done for the regular season? And do we get to see him in the postseason? When we see him in the postseason, I'll feel a lot better about him moving forward. But until I see that, and I mean, I'm a renowned Glasnow, denier, right? I don't deny the skills. I deny the health skill. And so he was probably not going to be as high on my board as other people's. He definitely won't be now.
Jack Flaherty, staff ace, baby. That's what you're looking at as a Dodger fan right now. I mean, good thing they got Yamamoto back here recently. Bueller,
Mm-hmm.
it's tough. It would suck if that Death Star gets taken down by this exhaust port because just translating right over. Clayton Kershaw is now done for the season too, and quite frankly, I mean, I don't think this is controversial. Just retire, just be done. You should have retired last year. I don't want to. I'd hate seeing the great ones limp on the way out. Also talking to you, Justin Verlander, just retire, be done.
Well, and that kind of brings up a really professional segue right there. Clayton Kershaw is done for the rest of the season. He has been seen throwing off a mound, so it seems like he will be available in the postseason, but they're just not risking it right now in the regular season. He's got a toe injury. Do you think he's actually done? I know you said he should be, but do you think this is the end of Clayton Kershaw?
I think this should be it. I mean, I don't know if it will age-wise, because remember, he turns 37 just before the season starts. But it's just like you look at the last 3 seasons, 121, 126, 131, and then 30 this year. And, skills-wise, there's so many things. I just don't want the Steve Carlton path to retirement, as Ron Chandler and the HQ crew made infamous many, many years ago in the forecaster. But that's like he's a lefty. He's throwing a lot of sliders. Like, this is all trending. I'm just waiting for Clayton Kershaw to pitch for the White Sox, the Twins. Where else did Carlton pitch? Like, he pitched for like 3 or 4 teams at the end there. But yeah, that's kind of the path we're heading. Just retire. I wish he would have retired after 2023. I just really hate seeing the great ones limp to the finish line. But I mean, you got to take the ball out of their cold, dead hands most of the time. And that's just the competitive nature they have that you and I don't.
Yeah, Carlton finished his last season with the Twins.
Yeah, that one I remember that because he did it. I want to say he did it during the World Series season, or the one just after. Yeah, during the World Series season.
And then he was with Cleveland the year before being traded with the Twins. He also was on the White Sox, the Giants, and Philadelphia.
Cleveland was
in '86.
Cleveland was the one I couldn't place.
Yeah, I kind of hope it's in the end. I don't want to see him. I don't want to see Kershaw go out the way he, could end up going out. He does have a player option for next season, but it's a really low dollar amount where it's like he's just like, hey, if I want to come back and pitch, I'm just doing it to, pad stats and try to chase another ring. I mean, I wouldn't draft him until we have some sort of conclusive evidence that he is coming back, that, maybe he exercises that player option.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, like it would have to be really, really late. We're talking about, a guy who at this point has only thrown, and of course I lost my page to see exactly how many innings he's thrown this year, but he's only thrown 30 innings. Yeah, that's nothing. Like, he's just, I hate to see him kind of go out this way. I wanted to see him go out like one more good season, but yeah, it's probably time for the guy. He's 36. He's going to be 37 next year. A lot of injury issues. Time for him to kind of go into the front office and kind of be a figurehead of some sort of department.
Yeah, let Sandy Koufax, actually go retire, and then Kershaw can just go sit in the stands and turn gray and be that guy that they always go to talk about pitchers. Moving forward.
There you go. Let's talk about some FAAB, because we do have some interesting FAAB guys for the next couple weeks, including best pitcher in baseball when he's healthy, Jacob deGrom, who made his debut for the season. He's returning from Tommy John surgery. He struck out 4, gave up 4 hits, didn't walk a batter in 3 2/3 of a scoreless inning this week. If you have some FAAB left, are you throwing a bunch of it at Jacob deGrom?
I'm wondering what is pitch count? Like, what kind of situation would he be on his for pitch count? Because he only went, like you said, he went 3 2/3. He faced 16 batters in that particular game. So that's kind of where I want to see what, 16 batters. So it seems like he was on a 70 pitch limit. So if I don't care about wins, sure. If I care about wins, I want somebody that I know that I can get that can go at least 5. I just think overall, like, again, for a 2025 focus, it's good that he's getting into a couple of games here before the season starts, so we can see before the next season, so we can go into it seeing something from him rather than sitting around. Because it's just been, we were just joking about, or kind of joking about Kershaw, but you go back and look at deGrom and just how many he has not had a triple digit innings total since 2019 after that third straight 200 inning season. 68, 92, 64, 30, and the one start he's had this year. That's been it. And they still got 3 more years of that contract in Texas to deal with. So it's good that he's getting out here to pitch, and the next guy we're going to talk about, it's good that he's getting out here to pitch. It gives us something to think about as we get into the offseason and start planning on what we're going to do for 2025. I like that type of situation more. Not that I'm taking 7-8 innings of work as, oh my God, this is awesome. It just helps, tie it back to Tyler Glasnow. Think about the year. He came back and pitched like 6 innings at the end of the regular season and got a little bit of work for Tampa Bay. And then we're able to see like, oh, maybe, something, it gave us something to think about. It helped keep his draft status in a decent place for things. Am I taking deGrom as a 1 or a 2 next year? God, no. But at least what we saw looked good. And let's see what we have for 1 or 2 more starts the rest of this way. But again, I always like giving that preference to pitchers that finish the season doing something versus us having to think back to what the last time that guy looked like.
Here's the problem, though. If you're not going to take deGrom as a 1 or a 2, you're not going to get him. He's going to be a 1 or a 2 in drafts.
If this year's Chris Sale, so be it. Like I faded Chris Sale as hard as I possibly could, so everywhere. I was just like, I just don't want to do that. But Chris Sale didn't have this. Yeah. I mean, this is like a CVS list, a CVS receipt of injury history with deGrom. And Chris Sale has had some issues, but not like deGrom.
Yeah. I'm still yet to be decided on whether or not I'm going to be willing to take him as high as I think deGrom is going to be going in drafts. I think for this season, if you need strikeouts, if you need a little bit of ratio help, I think that deGrom could probably be a really interesting pickup. You've got him going up against the Mariners this week and at Oakland next week. So these are 2 pretty decent matchups.
The Mariners are actually hitting lately out of nowhere.
Yeah, I'm still not super worried about putting deGrom out there against them. The problem is he won't go deep enough to win, more than likely. Correct. So if you're win seeking, that could be a problem. And we know from Robbie Ray that guys coming back from Tommy John, can look great one start and then really, really struggle with command and control the next start.
Right.
So there is a lot of risk. If you really need strikeouts, I think that is the plan of attack, especially if Robbie Ray isn't on your roster. But if you're win seeking, I just don't know that deGrom's going to go 5 in any of these 2 remaining starts, and he only has 2 remaining starts. So you're going to have to kind of make that decision. Why don't we talk about another guy for Texas who made his debut, and that's Kumar Rocker. Rocker has thrown up some just unreal strikeout numbers in the minor leagues. This is a former first overall pick, right? No, he was 3rd overall, but I feel like, did he go first?
He should have been 1-1, but then remember the Mets backed out of the deal, draft day stuff, and it backed down, and the Mets dropped out of it.
Yeah, okay. So he's a top tier pitching prospect. Now this is a guy with really, really good stuff. Doesn't always command and control it well. Through 4 innings, got 7 strikeouts in those 4 innings. Did give up a home run, and that was the only earned run he gave up. He is going to be having he's going to have a matchup versus Toronto, and then he will get Oakland. He'll be at Oakland as well. Is this a guy that you're going after?
So just to reiterate the absurdity of the strikeouts, 98 strikeouts and 12 walks in 64 innings before his promotion. Let's see, 29 and 35. Yeah, 64. So that's the absurdity of what he was doing down there. It's just, to me, it's amazing considering, he was pitching independent ball 2 years ago and nobody knew what he was going to be able to do. I did watch 2 innings of his debut, and the slider is unbelievable. There was that one particular bat, the one that really stood out to me was the one he had against Jorge Polanco, where you usually get 1 sword in a plate appearance, but Rocker got at least 2, and the only reason he didn't get a third one is because somehow Polanco got a piece of one of the sliders as he was looking like a transformer trying to swing at it. I mean, it was just unbelievable. The slider was legit. And yeah, so sure, I'll try this out. It's just, but long term, again, we're talking about a guy who's barely, how much work he hasn't had. We're talking about, and I'm sorry, those numbers I included were 23 and 24 earlier. But that's it. I mean, he's had, if we add what he just did, he's had 68 innings of work over the last 2 years. So even though the slider's great and whatnot, I'm struggling to think, what can I do for 2025? Where can I take Rocker? Because again, there's been so much of an unknown with that. And maybe if you're like, fine, I'll take him and then I'll ride him until he starts showing signs of fading apart or falling apart. And then I'll just drop him and move on. Fine. And maybe that's, that's not my thing, but I'm also, not arguing that you can't do that, but for the rest of the way, yeah, let's see where they go. Obviously, they want him to pitch. They want to see what he's capable of doing. They don't have an October, so this is it. I mean, these are his last 2, possibly 3 if he gets to a third one, and yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I don't know because they've been running I think a 6-man rotation in Texas, so I don't think he's going to get that third start, especially now that we've got deGrom and we got Scherzer also back in the rotation. So I think he's just going to get these 2 starts, but could be a lot of strikeouts. Again, I don't know how deep they're going to let him go into games necessarily. The Rangers aren't a team that's competing for a playoff spot at this point, though they have been playing a little bit better as of late.
They're still sub.
Yeah, they're still sub 500, and that's just not going to do it.
I mean, let's just talk about Scherzer though while we're here, since we're in Texas.
Yeah, let's talk about Scherzer. He's coming back off the IL. I think he pitching today. Is that right? No, he's not. He's not pitching today. He's going to be pitching next Saturday against Seattle, and then he will finish off the final. He'll finish off in that final series at the Angels. Scherzer has had just kind of an injury-plagued season this year. It seems like maybe Father Time is kind of catching up with him. He's only thrown 43 innings, 3.95 ERA, and only 40 strikeouts in those 43 innings. I feel like maybe Scherzer should have retired a year or after the end of last year. Are you interested in him for the rest of the season? And then going into next year, what are you thinking on him?
No and no. I mean, the thing is, he's got enough. He is a free agent after this year. He's unrestricted. He has got enough red ass in him where it's like he's not going to want to leave like this. I think he's going to try to stick around, try to find something to do. Now, maybe he comes back as a reliever and try that. That would intrigue me. Like if he wants to do a 1 year, but I just can't imagine him wanting to walk away like this.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm looking at. I mean, he was pitching great, and then this year, I just the way he has been, like his whole attitude thing, I could see him trying to come back for 1 more year on a 1-year deal and let me go pick my team and try to ring hunt and be like, here, I'm gonna do this and however you guys want to use me. Want to use me in the pen? Fine. I don't need the money. I've got a ton of it. Let me just see what I can do 1 more time. And if it starts to look bad out of the gate, maybe he just says, okay, fine, I'm done. I shut it down and I go.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably right on that. He just feels like one of those kind of competitive guys that doesn't want to go out in a 43 or 50 inning season, whatever it's going to end up being at the end for Scherzer this year. I think, my thoughts on him are very, very similar to a guy like Scherzer for this season. I think you can't really expect him to go super deep into games. He hasn't even hit 5 innings in like a minor league rehab start. He only threw 1 minor league rehab start and went 4 innings. Pitched well, 8 strikeouts, only no hits, only gave up 1 walk. Did hit a batter though, so maybe you could get some decent ratios and a few strikeouts in one of these from these 2 starts, but I wouldn't be going overly crazy here.
Mm-hmm.
What about your boy? Joey Cantillo. This is a guy,
video, folks.
Yeah, this is a guy that if you go back to the preseason, you mentioned him as a guy you were targeting for drafted holds and for deeper leagues. You thought he was a sleeper. It took a really, really long time, but he has pitched well since coming back to the major leagues. He had a no-hit performance that got ruined in the 7th inning against the White Sox, and then his last start against Tampa Bay through 5 innings, struck out 6, only allowed 3 hits and 1 walk, no earned runs in that outing. He's gonna be getting Cantillo is gonna have Minnesota this Thursday, and then I believe we'll line him up for home versus Cincinnati the following week. Where are you at on Cantillo?
Yeah, I'd want to roll with him the rest of the way with him. I mean, this was a guy in the preseason when I was talking about that. His ADP was in the 600s. And what I liked about him is strikeouts all over the minor leagues. Watch some video of him. The changeup is really nice. The curveball is really nice. The maybe it's too nice because he had issues, walks all over the minor leagues. And some of that was fastball command, but some of that comes down to being able to throw curves for strikes, the ABS system that happened. And I even saw some of that yesterday when I was at the last minor league game of the season here in Charlotte with the challenge system, which still can't wait for that to be in the majors. But everything's there. And again, it's the Cleveland track record. Just pick a name out of a hat and throw it in a Cleveland uniform, and they tend to do well on the pitching side. It's just crazy what they're able to do with their pitching creation. So I'm really intrigued to see what Cantillo can do if he can get a rotation spot heading into next season for them. And we'll see where it goes from there. But for the rest of the way, absolutely. I do want to continue. This has been a nice run that he's on, but he has missed some time from injury. He had his own, I believe, is a foot problem. So he's only thrown about 70 innings this year. Yeah. So that kind of puts a ceiling on my interest for next year on how far I want to go with him. But he has certainly done more of what we expected. The home runs haven't been an issue, and he has 83 strikeouts in the aforementioned that's 70.1 innings.
Yeah, I don't know how interested I'm going to be in him outside of maybe like a bench spot flyer in kind of drafts next year.
Oh yeah, mixed, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys that I wouldn't mind in a 15-team league kind of putting on my bench and just kind of seeing what happens. But I think when my projections come out, he's going to be a guy that's pretty low because I don't know that I'm going to project him for more than 120 innings. The whip and ERA may not be as pristine as it's been in these last 2 starts. But as far as this season, I'm totally down to kind of roll with him. I think you can get him, especially with all the other names like deGrom and Scherzer and Rocker that are going to be kind of available in FAAB in a lot of leagues. I don't think Cantillo is going to be a name that people really flock to. So I think you could, if you're really low on FAAB right now, Cantillo is a guy you could probably get for a cheaper price than you would normally get a guy who has, pretty decent starts down the stretch and, a team that gives him an opportunity to win both these last 2 remaining starts.
Yep.
All right. The Marlins have been going through a little bit of closer chaos recently. They lost Calvin Fosher to the IL. They've been kind of running. It looked like they were going to run with kind of a committee of I'm totally going to butcher this guy's name, Jesus Tinoco, I think it is.
Jesus Tinoco, yes.
Oh, nice. Anthony Bender on Declan Croden. Is Tinoco got the last save on Thursday? Are you interested if you are saves needy in him? Because the problem is, will the Marlins win that many games down the stretch?
Yeah, we're talking about 1 or 2 saves. I mean, honestly, realistically, we're talking 1 or 2 saves. I mean, when I will say this, I have not seen Tinoco pitch. I had to look him up when you had him on the rundown. He's pitched in 3 organizations this year alone. He's pitched for the Rangers, the Cubs, and now the Marlins this year alone. He's moved around. But then you look at, and by the way, the new Fangraphs pages are so nice. But I have the Stuff Plus and the pitching bot, and it's like the slider jumps out. Like on the Stuff Plus, 136 on the slider. It's like, holy crap. 119 stuff plus. Like that really speaks out well. And what it reminds me of is Manny Rodriguez of Tampa Bay. I want to see Tinoco pitch, but that was the calling card for Rodriguez. Is he had the great slider. He had the one pitch that really worked out well for him, and the stuff plus liked him. And Jeremiah Estrada, even before he added this splitter, that was one of the things that Estrada had going for him in the Cubs organization, is the stuff liked him. The results weren't there, and he had an opportunity, turned it into something. So, Tinoco is also almost 30 years old, so it's not like we're talking about a kid here. But this week, anything's possible. The rest of these next two periods, if you're very tight in saves, sure, take a chance.
Yeah, I think I would probably, if a guy like, I don't know, Luke Weaver, for instance, like if he's still available on your waiver wire, I think I'd rather go there, right? But if you're in kind of a very competitive league where maybe a guy like Luke Weaver isn't on the wire, I think Tinoco is kind of a Hail Mary. The only problem with Miami is they face the Dodgers and the Braves this week. Can't imagine they're going to see a lot of wins there. And then they finish out at Minnesota, at Toronto, maybe a few wins there where he could get a save or two. But you're really looking at maybe 2 saves potentially down the stretch in these next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that only is helpful if he's actually the quote unquote guy in the 9th inning. They could easily say, well, Anthony Bender is going to get one, or Declan Cronin's going to get one, and then maybe you only get 1 save out of him. So this is like bottom of the barrel kind of thing, but I would feel remiss if I didn't mention Tinoco. Jordan Westburg is on his way back from the IL. He has missed some time towards the end of the season with a hand issue. He's hitting right now. There's a good chance he's going to be back kind of mid to late next week. Any interest in Jordan Westburg off the wire?
No. He's hitting in the cage right now. So this week's probably a wash. Maybe next week, maybe. And we talked about this last week with some of the Orioles guys, or with Kobe Mayo and whatnot. It's like playing time has been problematic. Yeah. The Orioles have been problematic. Yeah, they did beat the Tigers last night, but I was at the Charlotte Knights game with a fantasy league friend of mine who's also a huge Orioles fan, and he was like legit going, there's a scenario out there that Baltimore doesn't make the playoffs. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, what? I took a look. I'm like, you know what? It's possible.
It's possible, but it's possible. It's not very probable. I mean, they're
not hitting right now either. It's just like they are really struggling. What that offense that they had, for whatever reason, just guys aren't getting on base. Adley Rutschman was worn down. And what used to be multi-run home runs for Santander have been solo shots because there's nobody on base in front of them. And yeah, it's the offense has really jumped on the struggle bus, and I don't even know what to point to. I mean, your boy Cedric Mullins tried to keep it kick-started with 2 home runs in a game last week, I think it was. But overall, I'm just surprised. You look at the standings, and it's like, man, Baltimore had a chance. Like they were it's been Yankees or Baltimore all season long, and not like the Yankees have tried to separate themselves in any capacity, but Baltimore hasn't tried to they had their chance, and they're 2.5 games back as play was starting today. But that's the thing that kills me. It's just like you had your chance. You're sitting there, and they're 2 games back. I believe Baltimore owns the tiebreaker in that series. I believe that's what I heard on a radio broadcast recently. So that's a game in that particular capacity. But it just kind of surprises me that they've had this chance, and neither of these teams are at 90 wins. I mean, the Phillies are trying to be the first team to get to 90 wins if they win today.
Well, it may all come down to that series next week with the Yankees and the Orioles playing each other on the.
And that's great. I love that. That's what it should be. So maybe the tiebreaker isn't decided. Maybe I was confusing a team, but that's what I love. I mean, I love the fact that we have some of these late season matchups that are gonna determine playoff seeding. So both these teams, the Orioles have a 99.9% chance of making the playoffs. So the scenario of them not making it is
pretty small.
Slim.
Yeah, but it's still there. And I don't know that we thought 2 weeks out in the season that there would be a possibility they wouldn't make the playoffs. I'm kind of with you. I haven't been the biggest Westburg fan to begin with. You're also dealing with a hand injury coming off the IL, which you just never know how that's going to kind of sap power. And there is a chance where, like, yeah, he just maybe plays a couple games to, make sure he's seeing some game, speed pitches, but that's kind of it for him. So I would probably steer away from Jordan Westburg as a pickup in case of trying to stash him for the final week of the season. What about Thomas Saggese, who is a Cardinals prospect that's come up recently? He's only played 5 games, hasn't hit particularly well, but does have a home run already. Played decently well in AAA, 20 home runs, 9 stolen bases, hit 253. Doesn't strike out too much. There's a 23% strikeout rate in the minor leagues. Any interest in Saggese?
Rest of the way, sure. I mean, when you look at what he was able to do, like this year down in the minor leagues, I have him in a 18-team dynasty league. He had 20 home runs, 67 runs driven in, 75 runs scored, 9 stolen bases, but hit 253 in AAA Memphis this year. So he's had the chance to come up and play. I'm just like looking at things again, 2025, because we have to bring it up as you start thinking about it. Where does he play? Right now you've got Brendan Donovan, you got Mason, the improved Mason Wynn up the middle. So then what happens? So I don't know what they do here. He's still young because he turns 23 in early April. So this is still part of the future. I just don't know where the future goes because he's logged some miles in AAA. He's got 138 games in AAA already and almost 600 plate appearances. Do they send him back there? Do they throw him into a deal to try to acquire something in the offseason? I don't know. So, yes, I'm still intrigued by the player, but I don't know if his future is in St. Louis.
Yeah, I don't know what his future holds for him either. And the problem is, I think he's going to be, at least for the rest of the season, kind of on the short side of a platoon mostly, which means, the Cardinals only play 2 lefties coming up this week, one in their first series and one in their second series. I just don't know how much playing time there's going to be for Saggese down the stretch. I think the guy that I'm a little bit more interested in is in Trey Sweeney. He was a part of one of the Dodgers Tigers deals. I think it was the Flaherty deal, and he was hitting well in AAA for the Tigers after the trade. In 47 plate appearances, he had 2 home runs, 4 stolen bases at 381. He's coming up and he is playing somewhat regularly. Any interest in Trey Sweeney?
Oh, he's only facing righties so far. So we have to really see what the projected matchups are. But so far, he's only playing righties. And yeah, he's got the 4 home runs, and that comes on the heels of what he did for AAA with the Dodgers. But it really matchups. Look at the lineups this week and see how many lefties are in play because he's only faced the righties.
4 of 6 games are against righties.
Okay.
So, and we're talking about going up against.
What about if we're in a multi-lineup week? Is it 3-1? What's that look like? Can you start them in the front half of the week and bench them on the weekend, or vice versa?
It is 2 of the 3 in the front half, and then 2 of 3 in the second half. So
it's the same.
Yeah, so it's the same. Going up against the Royals, and he would be facing the righties. He'd be facing Alec Marsh and Seth Lugo, and then he would get the Giants. And it would be Mason Black and Logan Webb of the righties there. So
not terribly excited about that.
I'm not terribly excited about it either. But he is gonna play those games. There's, and so like in your
so if it gets the playing time, if like this is your option, he's got the most playing time, then fine. But just don't expect much because those are some tough matchups. And are they home road?
They are away they're home for the entire week. Let me correct myself there. They are away. Oh, you know what? I misspoke. They are away all week, but they're at Kansas City and at Baltimore. So the 2 are on the back end. They get Corbin Burns. He would get Corbin Burns and Albert Suarez.
All right, so I like the Baltimore. Like if you're in NFBC style, like I bench him on the front week and I use him on the weekend.
Okay, yeah, I'm okay with that. This is a deep league play. If you need help in the middle infield, but he is going to get some playing time here over the course of the next few games and could be interesting in those deeper leagues. What about Acuna? He is making his debut, and of course, I'm talking about Luisangel Acuna, not Ronald Acuna. He is coming up and going to, I believe, debut here very, very soon. Any interest in Acuna, who's playing on the Mets?
My pause should probably say enough where I'm like, oh, no. It's good that he's up, and I'd like to see the Mets do something. He did have 2 hits in his only game so far. With that, again, I guess it comes. All my answers are going to be playing time. Where is he playing? How much is he going to play? In the minors, I mean, just statistically speaking, nonplussed.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing he can do is steal bases. He stole 40 bases this year in AAA, and the question is how much playing time will he get? But I think he could be an interesting kind of deep league stolen base threat. But we're going to talk about another one here in a minute that may be more interesting because the playing time is a little bit more guaranteed, and he has been stealing quite a few bases. So we'll talk about that here in a couple guys. Let's move on out to the outfield, though. I think Pavin Smith may still have first base eligibility too, but he's playing, fairly regularly right now, especially against right-handed pitching. And when he's in the lineup, he's actually producing 7 home runs and 115 plate appearances, getting 280, 348, 550. Any interest in Pavin Smith?
Sure. I mean, obviously the massive day against the Astros is fluffing up a lot of that stat line, but then he was 3 for 4 yesterday against Milwaukee with that and had 2 runs scored. So like you said, he's getting some productivity. The problem is it's been spotty just because of some of those matchups. He started, I'm looking at 4 of the last 8 games. So for whatever reason, they just had this rash run against the lefties where he's only come in as a pinch hitter and as a pinch hitter has done nothing. But when he's been out there, he's only had 1 game with a collar when he's starting. So when he starts, he produces. Again, look at the matchups, see how many lefties that they are potentially facing this week. But if he's loaded with righties, then sure, ride it.
They only face 1 lefty. That's Austin Gomber. They're going to Colorado. So he would get 2 starts in Colorado, probably sit for that Gomber start. And then they go back to Milwaukee where they face all righties.
Sure thing. Do it.
I think this is a really, really good stream pickup. A guy like Pavin Smith, I know he doesn't have prodigious power, but he is multi-position eligible at first and in the outfield, and should play quite a bit, including going to Colorado this week. So yeah, Pavin Smith's a dude that I would be looking to pick up here for the stretch run, or at least for this week, and then maybe next week it looks like they would have San Francisco and San Diego, so we'd have to kind of take a look and see how many lefties and righties we're going to be facing with those 2 kind of final matchups. All right, let's talk about that stolen base threat, and that is Michael Siani, who is the center fielder right now for the Cardinals. He has 17 stolen bases this season in 296 plate appearances, playing regularly as their center fielder. Any interest in Michael Siani?
He's got 3 steals this month. I know he had previously hurt, so he missed some time. He was running well before that at one point. And every time I hear his name, I can't help but remember Mike Siano from Fantasy 411. Every time I see Mike Siano, it's what comes across to me. But yeah, he's got 3 steals this month. Unfortunately, he's not on base a lot, and that's been kind of the challenge for him. He doesn't walk much, so it's like slap and try to get on base. But when he has been on base, he has run, and he has done it successfully. He has not been caught stealing in quite some time. He hasn't had a caught steal since June 17th. So he has been successful when he is running. So again, if you're very tight in the category and you need steals, this could be somebody potentially. What are their matchups the rest of the way?
St. Louis is home versus Pittsburgh.
Oh, that's easy. That's a great matchup for stolen bases.
Yeah, and then they are home versus Cleveland.
Not a good matchup for stolen bases.
So
actually, I take that back. Depending who it is, but yeah, that's the Pittsburgh one is delicious for stolen bases.
It's for For Cleveland, it is Cantillo, Lively, and Matthew Boyd. Now,
So that's two lefties. That makes it a little tougher to run.
Yeah, so do you want to point out, there's two lefties right there that you may have to worry about. And then they finish up their season, the Cardinals do, at Colorado and at San Francisco.
Huh. All right. 2 to 3 steals the rest of the way.
I think he could probably, get 3 to 4 steals. I think I'm on that. So if that makes sense for you on your fantasy team, like I said, he's going to play regularly because of the defense. He may sit against the lefty or two down the stretch, but I think he's going to play pretty regularly down the stretch. So could be some sneaky stolen bases for you if that's what you're looking for. Let's finish off with Jasson Dominguez, who is back with the major league team. Jasson Dominguez is like the cautionary tale of why stashing sometimes just does not work out, because there are a lot of people who stashed him knowing that he was going to be recovering from injury at the first part of the season, but like, second half he's going to be huge. Well, he's only had 19 plate appearances the entire season at the major league level, crushed AAA in the time that he was there. 193 plate appearances at 7 home runs with 15 stolen bases and a 309, 368, 480 triple slash. My problem is I just don't know how many plate appearances he's going to get down the stretch and how good they're going to be.
Yeah, are we talking like JavaScripting? Or are we talking about Mr. Garvey, JSON type of thing? But in all seriousness, he's not been in the lineup regularly. When I was looking, he's been 4 of the 6. When I was looking at what and he's been hitting lower. It still blows my mind that Austin Wells is the cleanup hitter for this team right now. But kudos.
He's been hitting well.
Yeah, exactly. Kudos to Austin Wells. Yeah. So Dominguez has been in the lineup 4 of the last 6 games. He's in the lineup today. He's hitting 6, and he's been playing like every other day. This is the first time he's played consecutive games this week. And looking back at it, but like you said, 19 plate appearances. We see that he has been mostly 2 true outcome. Has taken a walk or struck out in those plate appearances so far, which is not surprising, given that, hey, here, kid, come up in the middle of the pennant race. You haven't played much all year, but please come up in the middle of the pennant race and help us. No, I'm not very interested in this for the next 2 weeks. You have other options. Most of the other, especially Smith and Siani, are names I'd be more interested in.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, especially when you see that they're going to be facing Seattle and that rotation. He's going to get Brian Wu and Bryce Miller to start off the week. I just don't know that I care that much about Jasson Dominguez for the rest of the season. I do want to spin it forward to next season, though, because he is a top-tier prospect. You would have to think they're going to try to figure out a way to have him in the major leagues for the majority, if not all, of next season. Are you going to be interested in next year?
Depending on the market price, I'm not trying to sound like a cop-out, but, add the prospect tax, add the Yankee tax, and the market price is going to be out of control. You can write that in ink. And so, no, not at that price. I'm not interested. It may, work against me. I'm just trying to think of a couple examples off the top of my head now where it's like, no, I'm fading that guy and go there. But, it could go, maybe he works out like Tyler Black. I mean, look at all the hype going on Tyler Black coming into the season. Tyler Black is sucked. So I don't, and he wasn't even a Yankee prospect with that. So that's where, again, there's too many added taxes to that situation for me to be that interested. I can't wait for the first article. Will Dominguez break the top 100 ADP? How soon is that going to happen? That article's coming from somebody. It won't be me, but it's coming.
Yeah, I worry about that too. For me, it's going to be very price dependent. If he's a top 200 pick, like I just don't know that I'm going to be super interested in him. And I got a feeling he's going to be a top 150 guy. So I probably won't. I know, like you said, there are going to be articles out there that are hyping him up. That there are going to be people in the industry that are excited by him. And I mean, there is talent there, right? I mean, if we just look at what he did in AAA this year, almost 200 plate appearances. So you triple that to 600, it's 21 home runs and 45 stolen bases. Don't do that if you're doing projections, because that would be insane. but that it does show that there is a lot of upside if he is an everyday player. The problem is, I just don't know if that power is really ready to translate at the major league level. And I don't know that the speed is going to be something that translates as well, especially because the Yankees aren't necessarily a team that likes to push on the base paths when you've got Aaron Judge and Juan Soto and Stan in that lineup. So I just feel like while he does have a lot of upside, I think the likelihood he's going to reach that upside in his first full season in New York is pretty small.
And then, I mean, let's not forget they still have, contractually, it's not like I don't believe that Stanton is going anywhere anytime soon.
He's signed through 2027.
Yeah, so you still have that situation where it's like, okay, you've got Judge, you've got Soto.
Yeah, but Verdugo will be gone. Like,
sorry?
Yeah, Verdugo will be gone.
Yeah.
I assume they're going to try to re-sign Soto. Like, they would be crazy not to. But there's still a spot in left field for him if they don't go out and sign someone, and they need other things too. Like
they do.
This is a team that if they're going to be spending money, which I think they will, they're probably going after pitching and bullpen. So
it's kind of crazy to look at that to look at the roster. It's like, Torres walking. They're not bringing him back. That's as good as gone. Yeah, they would love to bring Soto back, but you don't know if that could. Obviously
they have to.
Push that price up.
They have to go get Soto. Like, it would be insane for them not to.
Yeah,
like it's just like they can't let the Mets sign him.
And you can't get through the air. I mean, you can't get through the Aaron Judge era and not make it to the World Series either.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they've got it. All right, that is going to wrap us up for this episode. Jason, remind everybody to reach and tell people what you're working on.
Find me on social media at the handle you see down there. Although I realized the handle's got a period in between my first and last name that doesn't need to be there. So scratch that. And then I'm working on, I think my next article is going to be revisiting the prediction that Nick Pollock and I have been teasing all year between Framber Valdez and Cole Reagans. If you've listened to Nick for anywhere between 1 and 3 milliseconds, you know how much he loves Cole Reagans. And I kept teasing him that Framber Valdez would be the more valuable fantasy pitcher this year, and that looks like it's going to work out for me ever so slightly. Not the lopsided thing but it looks like it's going to work out for me ever so slightly because Framber has had a phenomenal second half. And is one of the top 10 fantasy pitchers, and Reagans is a top 20 guy.
Yeah.
So looking for a little win, but going back to look at it, and that gets back to the market price thing. Because remember how and Nick was one of the ones pushing that market price up on Cole Reagans, but where his price was and why I didn't like him as much it was like, okay, fine, you go take Reagans, and I'm just going to wait, and I'm going to take Valdez shortly thereafter, and let's see where things go. So I want to take just a look at that because 2.5 months ago, Nick was almost running a victory lap. He could have, and he could have gotten away with it too, because it wasn't looking good. But
you can reach me on all social media platforms at Justin Mason FWFB. You can read. I'm still going to be writing, at least for the next 2 weeks, a few articles a week over on Fantasy Pros, and then my usual articles on Fangraphs. I've got this podcast in the Friends of Fantasy Benefits podcast, and that will wrap it up for us. For Jason and myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic end of your baseball season.
Thanks, guys.